Excellent. So this is our spend data. So these are the regional tourism indicators that MB have instilled in all of the regional tourism organisations. And we can get into quite granular detail on spend, and what it is showing is that we have obviously had an increase in passenger transport spend, and that is around the cruise sector. You can see those marked changes, and you've seen perhaps a small drop-off in commercial accommodation spend because it's gone into cruise ship transport, so it kind of all makes sense. But this is indicating spend by visitors to Hawke's Bay from other regions, and it's captured through their credit card data. So it's not anyone living in Hawke's Bay, it's taken their origin address outside the region, and it's a 20% of BNZ credit cards, so it's a fairly sizable survey.
Sorry, is that inflation adjusted, that line?
I don't know, Murray.
It doesn't look like it. It's the point I'm making is the trend is up, but if you take inflation from 2008, is it, through to, in other words, the 5-year period, the increase is still up on the line, but the line bends down much more than that. So it's probably up roughly 10%, which I think, given the period of those 5 years, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
But it's still a long way to go to be.
It is. The other
absolutely
stat,
beautiful,
which I haven't included in this, is our comparison to other regions, and we're actually tracking quite well above other regions in terms of where they're at. So, yeah.
I think that's the more interesting one, isn't it?
Yep.
That we're tracking against, and that's the effect, particularly in the last 2 years, or it's a bit longer than that, where you can see the recession sitting in the middle of that.
Yeah, and you can see the Rugby World Cup result as well.
Yes,
which
isn't
is,
it?
Yeah, which is interesting.
But if you factor them out, there's an underlying increase, even against inflation, and that's the key data that I'm interested in.
40%.
Yeah, and inflation in that period, and of course we're talking about a particular type, not just CPI here, because I mean if you take vehicle cost, petrol costs, for example, the inflation on petrol costs in that period has been phenomenal. It's been roughly the 40%. But the overall trend is still positive, which is good.
Mr. Chair, that's total for all of New Zealand, that green line.
No, that's regions. That's other people coming into Hawke's Bay and spending
all other
money.
regions coming in here.
Oh, okay, and did you say that's based on 20% of credit card transactions?
Yep.
So what about the other 80%?
Oh, it's a pretty good sample size considering the number of people that.
Oh, okay, so it's like
it's considered a
like
very
a survey
solid.
kind of staffing.
Yeah. Excellent. We didn't get to show you with sound the video last time, but I hope you've all been on and had a wee look. But we've had over 70,000 views of our TVC, and we're pretty happy with the result, and it will be, we're rolling it back out again in August for the family market for our summer campaign pitch. But we've had great response to this. The industry's, linked it every which way on social pages to their own websites, and we're getting great sort of feedback on the ad as well. So if you haven't had a look, please do. And we are looking all the time at new content, and one of the next pieces of content in this video digital space is around cycling. So we'll have a 2-minute Hawke's Bay Trails cycling clip, which we're working on with HBRC staff, and that will be available hopefully in the next couple of months. And but the way that we film this content is that it's very sort of modular, and we can sort of add and create new ads as well. We're also talking to the team up in Wairau about what we do for Lake Waikaremoana and Northern Hawke's Bay, which will be good.
Any of those video clips, I think they're very, very good. They are accessible anywhere in the world, because I know some are restricted to New Zealand.
No, well, they're all on YouTube. So if you're on YouTube, you're global.
Okay. No, I sent some to the States, and some of them couldn't play them. I just wondered if there was an access problem.
Oh no, they should. Everyone on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, you should be able to view them. We also have them on disc for anyone who's off overseas for meetings and presenting Hawke's Bay, and you want to kick off with something that's that shows the region. So we have those available as well for councillors, etc. Just to sort of highlight, this is our quarter update, and we have had a very big travel trade quarter. We've hosted 3 mega FAMs, which are monstrous groups of agents that Tourism New Zealand have worked on with both Emirates and Air New Zealand, and they came through in May. And We've also had a pretty top-end Emirates incentive group that were through for 3 nights, and that was a huge coup for Hawke's Bay to win that. They were the 26 top travel sellers out of Australia, the CEOs, and we hope to see some good long-term results from their visit. This slide behind is a show that we attend in Auckland. We had 16 Hawke's Bay operators, and we were one of 7 regions, and Hawke's Bay was by far and away the largest, biggest, proudest and boldest of all the regions. And it was really nice to see a group of operators, smaller operators, that are getting into the international space. So many of them hadn't been exposed to international travel sellers before, and they came and did Hawke's Bay proud. So it was a fantastic show, and we certainly looked pretty sharp. The next one here is meetings, and this shows a good indicator for us about business and conference travel. Last year things were pretty tough and there wasn't a lot of conference or corporate business. In this show this year we took a full farmers market theme, which went down brilliantly, and I think our stand was the most photographed. But we were there with the the War Memorial, the Hawke's Bay Opera House, and the Crown Hotel, and we had business written on both days of the conference. And there was certainly a great shift in thinking about conference and business travel. And Hawke's Bay and secondary regions were back on the list. It wasn't all about Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch. It was and Rotorua. It was really about getting out with key conference business into the region. So we're certainly seeing an upswing in that space. And obviously we've now got a staff member who's dedicated to really pitching that business and being just more active and vocal in that area.
Just on the issue of meetings, conferences. What extent is the airport disruption an impediment to us hosting conferences, and probably it applies to other regions just as much, but every time the airport's closed by fog, Hosting District Councillor Simon Nixon writes a letter complaining that we don't have 737s coming in. I can't understand why what appear to be the highly suitable aircraft that service this and other provincial airports don't have the same navigational equipment. I don't expect you to be able to answer that, but could you just comment on to what extent is this a problem, and is it worth sort of trying to do something about it? I don't mean get rid of the fog.
Mother Nature's a little hard to control. We work very closely with Air New Zealand on group business, and if we have conferences that are looking for, they need 50 seats or they'll put on larger aircraft, it's as simple as that. But it's a planning, and most of these conferences are booked 2 to 3 years out, so we have good lead times, and the conference organisers work with the Air New Zealand team as best they can. So, we can't solve the fog and the weather issues, but we're in constant talks with Air New Zealand, and the key thing is we've got to create more demand for the destination, and they'll put hopefully bigger planes on. But at this stage we do as much as we can with the resources that we have.
Hamilton's here. I was going to say that the one region that suffers the most from that is Hamilton, and most people recognise that they don't actually have a reliable opportunity in the middle of the year to get in and out of there, and so I've heard that for years. So I don't think we've got a problem here at all.
Right. We also had Fork this last quarter, the winter version, which was a bit of we didn't know if we were going to do it. We didn't know if we were going to call it Fork, but we did, and we're really thrilled with the result. So we had just over 1,000 tickets. Just under 1,000 tickets sold, which was about just under 90% of all tickets available. I guess the key for us was, that's 1,000 people who were out enjoying Hawke's Bay, eating and drinking and spending money in the region in June, which is a pretty quiet month for us. We had about 20% to 30% of visitors were from out of town, and that the long-term plan is that will grow. There's not much on the calendar in June, and so we feel that this has got some legs to it from a long-term point of view, particularly as an off-season event. So pretty delighted. There were 28 events, 18 were sold out, some were pretty small, others were much larger, but overall the feedback on Winter Fork's been fantastic.
Oh, yes. Also within this month has been decanted, How would Falk rate against the Deco decanted for out-of-town visitors?
Oh, I actually don't know what Sally gets for her out of town. I think it's quite a good shift. I mean, it's a smaller. I think they get a few hundred. I don't know enough about the stats for the Deco decant. But we promote that as part of our event package as well, which is good.
So you actually see Falk as being a bigger event than the.
Well, one of the things with Falk.
Deco.
Oh, not necessarily. I mean, they're quite different, and I think they target different audiences. The other thing with Falk that was particularly successful was over the whole month, we ran a restaurant kind of Falk by 5. And one property alone who they did an extra 117 lunches, which was all new business because they don't dabble in that space. So that economically was also great for some of the restaurant trade. So that's about getting locals out as much as it's about supporting visitors. But we see Deco as a complementary event in that off-season period. This one just. If you can read it, but we're heavily obviously into social media and online and digital as the way of the future. But just to show you, our sort of combined tally of visits per month to the sites that we manage, which are the Falk site, the Big Easy site, and Hawke's Bay NZ, the main site, we're over 25,000, and the team are constantly updating, engaging socially online, and we've got 5,500 Facebook likes, and the team have been working really hard to build that base. So there's just multiple channels for us that we have to choose and talk to, and it's been interesting to see who wants to engage in which channel. Foodie people don't like Facebook, but cyclists do. So there's some interesting ways of how we have to target, and you've just got to be smarter and more clever and more focused in this space. We're doing a monthly e-newsletter that goes out to our consumer database, and that's sitting at about 14,000 people that goes to, and we obviously try and gather more names as many events as we possibly can. But everything's shifting into that sort of online digital space in terms of how we can talk to consumers. Just an update on the collateral. Just in the last quarter, we have produced the new Cycle Trails map and the planner. I think I had a copy of the planner last time, but the Cycle Trails map, we've printed 70,000 of these because we need them, and they go out the door like hotcakes. So we're pretty delighted with that. And if you can flick to the next one, Leanne. One of the big things we've been involved with the Regional Council, Napier and Hastings, is getting the airport rebranded, but the big thing is getting the Cycle Trails map up on the wall. We've replaced Mayor Arnott, but she's said to me she's very happy to be replaced with a cycle trail. So it's a great map, and it's also a way for visitors when they arrive to actually get some perspective on the depth and breadth in the region and where they can go and what they can do. So we've been working pretty closely with Hastings District Council, Regional Council and Napier City Council on the branding. The other thing that we have pushed on within the last quarter is we ran an industry survey, and I don't want to go through in great detail, but the reason why we did it was we wanted to get a better snapshot of who our industry was and what they did and where they were based and the types of activities and attractions they were involved in. We had a sort of just under 20% response rate to our survey, and so about 160 of the industry filled it in. It was pretty descriptive, and it was split into areas around accommodation, experience providers and hospitality. Can you flick the next one? And that might be a little hard to read, but the key things in here that came out was from an accommodation point of view, just over 50% of the accommodation was based in Napier, but 41% was Hastings Havelock. But really interesting, in the activity and attraction section, the Hastings district has by far the lion's share of activities and attractions at 52%, which I think surprised a few people. Hospitality and food clearly is spread out across the main areas, and overall you can just see the totals down the end in terms of the characteristics of the industry. But I guess it painted for us I'd say 5 years ago the statistics would have been probably much higher for Napier in terms of accommodation, but things have shifted because what this does include are the holiday homes and some of those ones that we managed to capture in this survey that we don't normally get to capture.
Do you have any explanation for that increase in people enjoying the Hastings experience as opposed to Napier?
Not so much in enjoying, but I think when you actually look at what people come to Hawke's Bay to do, and if this slide shows what we asked the industry what they thought the reasons that people came, and the number one by far was based around wine and vineyards and restaurants and vineyards. Second was Art Deco, then there was food, and I think a lot of those things happen within the Hastings district. So, I think we have a huge variety of product, but a lot of, you think about the Gannets, the farmers market, these are all pretty key attractions, and they are in the Hastings district. Obviously, Art Deco is the absolute key for Napier, and really, really important. But the other things that came up on this, the topic 6 experiences, weather came up, which I don't know if weather's an experience, if it's good I suppose or bad, but events came up, which was really important, and the last one was cycling, which we were thrilled to see because obviously we're investing a huge amount in that space.